Yes. Okay. So we're gonna do the next. Not gonna finish this chapter, not by no means. Story of Yiftach Hagiladi, but really it starts off with the previous psukim of the previous chapter in chapter 9. So it's the end of chapter 10, very end of Perek Yud. I come bearing handouts because we need that. They say that you shouldn't take handouts. Lovely day, manas b'sarvadam. But if this is the handout you have to take, this would be good. So then you'll be Yotze that if Hashem determined in this year that you had to take a handout, may it be a handout of Torah sheets. Vayitzaku b'nei Ammon v'yachanu b'Gilad v'yasafu b'nei Yisrael v'yachanu b'Mitzpah. So after the whole thing that we saw last week, and then finally, like they pushed away the enemy, but Bnei Ammon, somehow they retreated from Israel proper and they went back to Gilad. So Gilad is the Transjordan part of the Israel camp where they were, these 2.5 tribes. And they gathered there and camped at Mitzpah. So the people, the princes of Gilad, they each said, like, who's going to do battle against the children of Ammon? Like whoever does so is going to become the leader. So that's how the chapter ends, but it's really set up for the next beginning of Yud Aleph. So Yud Aleph, this is the Haftorah for Parshas Chukas, and we'll see why, because it actually, in the Haftorah, in the text itself, it recounts much of what happened in Chukas, which is also recounted in the beginning of Devarim. All those battles that we just kind of fly over, Sichon, Og, and Bog, this one, Amori, that land, whatever. And yeah, but it's all recounted there. And we're going to have somebody named Yiftach, but Yiftach who has a rather, like right off the bat, not the most impressive start in terms of the way he's described in the text. Look at this. The Yiftach Hagiladi. First of all, if I say the word Yiftach, does it ring a bell when I say Yiftach? That's good if it doesn't. I mean, it's not good, but it's good. It'll be good, but it's not good. Meaning not good. It's good in the sense that like now it could build up the drama, but so you don't know everything ahead of time. But so there's a saying in the Gemara that says Yiftach bedoro kashmuel bedoro. The whole question is when we talk about greatness of individuals, it could be in anything. So we're talking about obviously in Tanakh greatness or in spiritual, Torah greatness. Right, Noah, or they always say like, who's the greatest baseball hitter of all time? Is it Babe Ruth, or is it like, oh, but the ball was different and the pitchers were different? Like, so can you compare greatness in different eras? So the Gemara says that you can't just necessarily do that. I mean, in this opinion, the Gemara says Yiftach bedoro kashmuel bedoro. As great as Yiftach was in his generation, that's the same as how great Shmuel was in his generation. And meaning that it's all relative. And sometimes, and it happens a lot institutionally, why things fail over time is because people fail to adapt to changing realities in the generations, right? What worked 50 years ago doesn't work today. Or we just talked about that last week. It was a hard talk, but we had to have it about moving red lines and things like that. But that's the reality, is that things shift over time. There's evolution, right? Somebody, I once heard from a colleague a great line about orthodoxy. If you look at things that are sort of acceptable in orthodoxy today versus, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years ago, you go, crazy, that'll never happen. Somebody once said to me, orthodoxy is like orthodontics, right? You can't, if you want to straighten your teeth, you can't expect it to like overnight be straight. A little bit of pressure over a long period of time gets things where it needs to go. That's what happens. Okay. So for instance, we've had and I don't mean to bring up a sore point, but I'm just saying in this show, we've had a woman president twice. Okay. I'm not saying anything about any other shuls. Who was the third? Oh, you're right. You know what? You're right. She was so correct. 3 times. I stand corrected. I sit corrected 3 times. And by the way, it was like, it was not an issue at all. It was like, Baruch Hashem. It was great. Baruch Hashem. Again, I'm not casting aspersions on any other institutions, local or not, about that particular issue, because I wouldn't even know where to begin. I don't know anything about any other shuls, what other shuls do, what losing by 1 vote because people went to the Galapagos Islands. I have no idea what happened. Anyway, but like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, imagine, I mean, could you ever have imagined that my predecessor, when he was here, that would happen? No, right? Now it's not like, oh, I'm so liberal. It's not nothing to do with that. It's just like look at the reality of what's going on. And by the way, why would you want to cut the volunteer pool in half, if not more, by eliminating these possibilities? And by the way, guess what? We're still Jewish. We're still Orthodox. We're still like, we haven't changed anything. We're doing okay. Like, thank God. And we survived it. Right. They said they said an old lady in Europe, and like, Mashiach is coming. She's like, we survived Khmelnytsky. We survived Stalin. We survived Hitler. We'll survive Mashiach Ochid. Like we did okay. Yeah. Correct. So that's the and they call it also the shtipulization of America, is that I can't go to that shul, I can only go to this shul, and this like it's a whole it's a whole thing. Fascinating study. This is like late Shavuos night talking points kind of thing. So I don't know. Maybe we should give a shiur late Shavuos night about women becoming president. It'll be a very short shiur. We did it 3 times. Okay, let's have cheesecake. Even though I don't eat cheesecake. So Yiftach in his generation was great, but you'll see, wait a minute. So one thing we know, and this is very, very important, it's a point that I cannot make strongly enough, is that God picks his heroes, picks his leaders from the most unlikely places. Okay? So if I would ask you, and it's appropriate now for Shavuos, right? When we studied Ruth, right? She's a convert. She's a daughter of a Moabite. She's a Moabite princess. Like, really? And by the way, and what comes from her? Melech HaMashiach, David HaMelech. Okay? The story of Yehuda and Tamar, which is also interconnected because of that line in the Yehuda, in the dynasty of the family of Yehuda, and from Tamar, she dresses up like a oh my. Like I say, the soap operas got nothing on us. We destroy their storylines with everything right there in the Chumash.
Or in my life, I have a relative
Yeah.
who married, had 5 kids, then got divorced, had a kid with his new person.
Yeah.
The new person's not Jewish.
Yeah.
The kid is now being bar mitzvahed. He converted. He wants to have a bar mitzvah. And this relative wasn't keeping kosher or Shabbos, and this kid is having the family now keep kosher and Shabbos and all that kind of thing.
Like God's sense of humor is just
It's like from the Torah.
head and shoulders above. Yeah, right. So I always say this. I say, look, if David HaMelech, I know this is quite apocryphal, but I'm just being dramatic for a reason. If David HaMelech would show up today and he needed a shidduch and he went to Lakewood to get a shidduch, he couldn't get a shidduch. Why? He's a skinny kid. He's a redhead. He plays music. He's very close with this other boy. I don't know. His family history, forget about it. Like, oh, his great grandmother was a convert. Oh, Gewalt. Oh, yeah. We look back, wouldn't get a shidduch, right? And he sings like, oh, who's this? But God, and what? So why? Why is that? It's because leadership or greatness is not defined by where you come from. It's not about what your last name is. It's based on what you do. It is, there's a meritocracy to it. Is that it's not just, because your father, because how many great rabbis have kids that were not great? And how many not great parents have kids who became Talmidei Chachamim and leaders and this and that? There's no guarantee. If we learn anything from the book of Bereshis, is every single firstborn, no, because it just doesn't work like that. It works based on what you do and who you are. So even if you come from an unlikely place, it's not a reason to write somebody off. So it goes both ways. It's, first of all, if you think you can't account, look where I come from. What chance do I have? No. There are great people in Tanakh who came from nothing and look what they were able to accomplish. So don't sell yourself short. And also, we could never have this person. Are you kidding me? The shots of Meshidach doesn't look good. No, it doesn't work like that. Okay? That's the way. And we've gotten so crazy about how things look that I always say, like, Yichus is very important, right? You know what I mean when I say yichus? Yichus is lineage. Yichus is very important. It's also a 4-letter word. I mean, literally, it's a 4-letter word. And sometimes, like, oh, blah, blah, blah. You know, there are scores and scores of families that hide and bury things and this and that. Not as much anymore, but I remember when I was in yeshiva, there were families that if they had a nebuch, a kid who was like special needs or something, they would like put the kid away in an institution, and the other siblings wouldn't even know about it, some of them, because it would ruin the shidduchim for the other kids. It's changed a bit, but still, like, there are a lot of things that, you know, we sweep under the carpet. I mean, like the Jewish community, because, oh my God, it doesn't look good. But the Torah, the whole Torah, it doesn't look good. All the greatness of the Torah comes from places that don't look good. Okay? So based on this introduction, look how the Pasuk introduces him. Yiftach hagiladi hagibor chayil. He's great. Okay, Gibor Chayil, I like that. He's brave. He's a soldier. Oh, and he's a Ben Isha Zona. What? Now, I say, now, of course, anytime you see it, we saw this when we learned Yehoshua with the story of Rachav. Rachav was also called the Zona, and we gave all the interpretations there. It doesn't mean Zona. He's by the way, he's literally a Ben Zona. Now, you say that to an Israeli, right? Mimi, that's not nice. Not nice. That's, you don't, it's ze lo tov. Ze lo tov ma she'ata omer chaver. Ze lo ivrit tov. Don't say those things. Zone from the word mazon. She was an innkeeper. She used to feed people. You can give all the interpretations that you want, okay? Which the Mefarshim, indeed, they do. He was a son of the Pilegesh. She wasn't, you know, she was a concubine. In other words, he wasn't purebred. But when the Torah, there are other ways you could have said that. The fact that the Torah chooses this phrase, Ben Zona, Ben Isha Zona, it's like, yeah, I want you to get the full effect. I'm sure, probably. But even so, this who describes somebody as the daughter of an innkeeper?
Ask these.
Right? The daughter, right? I don't know. Is that like, you know, the manager of the hotel, right? But as I'm saying, who else is described by their mother's profession? Oh, he was the son of a doctor. Okay, okay, we get it. That's right. Yichus. You know the story about the Jewish guy who's elected president, right? This is one of the first. I try to teach my son how to tell jokes properly. So a Jewish guy gets elected president of the United States. You can imagine, finally, like, you know, like Joe Lieberman, almost, but Jewish guy gets elected president. He calls his mother in Boca, and he says, "Mom, I want you to come to the inauguration." I don't know. How am I going to get there? Nah, I'm going to send Air Force One to pick you up, and you'll go to Washington. Ugh, I have nothing to wear. Ma, the White House social secretary is going to reach out and give you an outfit, no problem. Ugh, where am I going to sit? Mom, you're going to sit next to the Secretary of State. It's going to be beautiful. It's so cold. I'm in Boca. It's so cold in Washington in January. Mom, we're going to have a space heater. It's behind the bulletproof glass. You're going to be fine. Okay, I'll go. So she goes, and the son's president. They're having the inauguration. He's up there giving his inaugural speech. She turns to the Secretary of State. She like gives him an elbow, says, "You see this one up there? He has a brother. He's a doctor, right?" So that's like the ultimate, like the doctor, right? My parents are both doctors, so I didn't do that.
You could do it about then.
Yeah, but like, he's a son of a doctor. Nobody calls me the son of a doctor, right? Who calls like what is so even if it means innkeeper, like. And by the way, when they said innkeeper, it wasn't nice either, because they're saying, oh, she fed so many people, but she like mixed a little too much business with pleasure. So that's on the one hand. So right off the bat, we don't know anything about him other than because they said, we need someone to defeat the enemy. So first it says Gibor Chayil. Yeah, he can fight. But also he's a Ben Zona. And then it says Vayolad Gilad et Yiftach. But to have no doubt about it, that he comes from Gilad. This is Gilad ben Machir ben Menashe. Like he has yichus, just not like good enough yichus. On his father's side, pristine. On the mother's side, whether it was a concubine, and we saw this with the concubines, how they were treated, the children of the concubines. We've seen that throughout. So, Vatelet Eshes Gilad lo banim, vayigdlu b'nei Haisha v'yigarshu es Yiftach, v'yomer lo sincha b'veis avinu, ki ven isha acheres ata. So Gilad's wife had a bunch of sons. And when they grew up, what happens when you have a bunch of sons and then there's a son who's and also ran, and there's a son that's, not purebred? So they said, Arois Medir, you're out. You're not going to inherit the household of our father. Why? Because you're the son of another woman. So you can imagine that Yiftach grows up with a bit of a complex. I mean, who wouldn't? That you're cast out. And I mean, anybody who's ever had to deal with even a blended family, and I'm not talking about, people that concubines, but when you have blended families, and it's a nice thing when people get second chance in life or whatever it might be, sometimes there's tension in blended families and this type of thing. But here they're like, yeah, you're out. So Yivrach Yiftach mipnei achav vayeshev be'eretz tov vayislaktu es el Yiftach anashim rekim vayitzu imo. So Yiftach, he fled. Like, I'm not sticking around for this. You're going to kick me out. Like, why do I need to see? So where does he go? He goes into the land of Tov. Now, maybe it's the same Tov that we read about in the story of Ruth. Is that there was Tov? Some say his name was Tov, the Redeemer. Anyway, but he goes to a place called Tov, and who goes with him? So if he's like an Eisvarf, it's a great term they taught us in yeshiva. Eisvarf for the kids that didn't want to sit and learn. Eisvarf. Eisvarf.
Roll out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you're a bum. You're a bum. It's like, ugh, who needs you? Right? The Rebbeim of previous generations did a wonderful job of turning off all kinds of students. Amazing. Making think they'll never amount to anything. Amazing. They did a great job of that, really. They didn't, that's talk about understanding. They try to bring the European model of education to America. It didn't work. For a lot of people, it just didn't work. Yeah. It's the same reason why Moshe Rabbeinu in Parshas Chukas is the Haftarah for Chukas. That's when he hits the rock. You say, what's the big deal? He hit the rock. Hashem speak to the rock. He hit the rock. It worked for him 40 years ago when they came out of Egypt, right? When they crossed the sea and there was no water, Marah, Hashem told hit the rock. So that's what because in the previous generation, when you hit the rock, it worked. Now, you can't hit a kid anymore. You can't even hurt a kid's feelings. Right? You tell a kid, if you don't give him a participation award, oh my God, he might, oh my God, he might become a Republican. So what you know what I mean? That like it doesn't work. You have to adapt. So he's like, I'm not sticking around for this. But who went with him? The Oisvars. Vayislaktu el Yiftach. Who did he collect? You're going, I'll go with you. Because he's obviously a personality, but anashim rekim, empty. People of like more Oisvars. And they went with him. What's interesting is that as we've seen, the names of places and people they associate with are there on purpose. Okay, we're going to see everybody like he's going to end up being the hero of the story to a bit. Where does he go? Where does he settle? A place called Tov. In other words, he's going to end up being good. He's going to end up being okay. Everybody else, you high and mighty, right? No, Tov, like
No,
Tov, good.
That's Tov, the place, but he's like Yiftach, like.
Oh, maybe.
Opens up.
Maybe.
No?
I don't know. See, I mean, that was his name. I didn't see anything in the fortune about his name. But I like that. Yeah, he's Yiftach is like he opens new horizons, like or he could open your eyes of like, not everything's what you think it is, or not everybody's who you think they are, or not everybody is as good as you, or it doesn't have to be like you. So he ends up being Tov. He goes to a place called Tov, and they're going to have to bring him back. And it's great. And again, there's more dripping with sarcasm here that we see. So So time happens. Ammon, they start doing battle. So after the war goes on, so the elders of Gilad, like, okay, we need somebody who could fight, as we saw in the preview. And who could fight? We know Gilad, so we better go get him from the land of Tov. Okay. So they say, come and be our katzin. What's a katzin? Officer. So in other words, that's not a political position. That is a military position. They say, you come and be our military leader, okay? And then we'll do battle with Ammon. Vayomer Yiftach leziknei Gilad. Alo atem senei semosi, v'tegarshinu mibeis avi, umadu abasem elai ata kasher tzar lachem. He's like, wait a minute. Now you need me. Again, you have to love the sarcasm, right? Wait, weren't you the same people that kicked me out? Weren't you the same people that didn't like me so much? And now you need me? Oh, now you need my help? It's like, don't pick on the nerdy kids in high school because you're gonna end up working for them one day, right? Or be careful what you say on the way up because you might meet them on the way down. Like all these types of things, yeah, right? I can't tell you how how many times you've seen that where people, it's like the Marty McFly in the end of the first the first Back to the Future movie, which don't overthink the Back to the Future movies because it will hurt your head. The whole like over and over time, anything with the time space travel continuum, it's like it's bad. Don't you can really mess with you. But when he comes at the end and the guy who was the bully and he's like ends up washing his car, he's waxing his car, Mr. McFly, right? But that's he's like, wait a minute, you picked on me in high school, you used to stuff me in a locker. I speak from no personal experience in this area, by the way. I was like pretty powerful.
The stuffy.
I was just,
stuffy.
I was never, I was just short. I was diminutive of stature. I didn't really, strange, I didn't really grow. And now I'm completely average and I'm totally satisfied with my average height. But I didn't grow till probably like after high school, which is weird. Like I was like 17 when I went to Israel. All of a sudden, like I had a growth spurt. Like, really? You couldn't give that to me like 2 years ago? Really? I suffered through high school. It's not fun being a short kid in high school. And I had nothing to compensate for it, just other than nothing. So, yes, this is my therapy too. He's like, you want me? And all of a sudden, oh, now you're in a tough place. Now you want me? In other words, what is he, look at the answer and like, what was he really saying to them? So they said, because in the beginning of the last and then the last chapter, they said, whoever is going to be to do battle will become the leader of all the inhabitants of Gilad. They call him, they say, fight for us. And you could be the general. And he says, what? He didn't go for it. Then they say, no. This is why we came back. So you're going to do battle, and then you'll become the leader over all the inhabitants of Gilad. In other words, he knew that they were like, even though they're in dire straits, and they still don't want to give him what he really wants to be the leader. No, you could be, we'll give you a nice job in middle management. A wonderful 401k package. You'll get 6 vacation days and it's all good. You only have to report to 4 other people ahead of you. He's like, what are you crazy? Now you want me? Oh, no. Maybe this meant you be the leader of all of us. No, we want you to have we want you to be the president. Oh, okay. That's a whole other story then. Okay. He says, okay, if you bring me back to do battle with the children of Ammon, and Hashem delivers them before me, I will become your leader. So this is important because he's right away invoking the Hashemness of this. Hashem. Who? Hashem yelachem lachem. Hashem is the one that's going to do battle. Vayomer ziknei Gilad el Yiftach Hashem yihiyeh shemei beinosenu im lo kedvarcha ken na'aseh. And they said, the elders of Gilad said, may Hashem bear witness between us if we do not do according to your word. So he went with the elders of Gilad. The people set him as a leader and a chief over them because he agreed to go do battle. And then he spoke all these words before Hashem and mitzvah. We'll see that what it means in a minute. But a lot of it also perhaps has to do with this give and take of a condition. Their whole existence in this area started with a condition. If you let us stay here, and Moshe's like, what? You can't stay here. What about you, Israel? No. We'll help them settle first, and only then will we settle. That's something called Tanai b'nei Gad b'nei Reuven. The basis of conditional transactions in Talmud and Halacha is based on this. If A, then B. Right? If you do A, then you'll get B, that kind of thing. So, so he says, okay, so they have to state that, and he says, okay, but we'll have to convene with Hashem. So he goes to a place called Mitzpah. Mitzpah, so Rashi and Radak have a couple different answers. Rashi says is that they went to a place, Mitzpah, because that's where it was a big gathering place, and we say that when the people gather together, the Shekhinah dwells among them. That's one thing. The Radak says that if we remember back in the time of Yehoshua, a great miracle took place in Mitzpah. He says, and because of his great miracle, people would always gather there, and there was a Mizbeach, and there was a shul there, or whatever, and he says that's where people will go like to daven. They didn't, again, this is no Beis HaMikdash, no Mishkan, we don't know where the Mishkan is at this point, so that's the place they went. Like, where do you go? We go to the town center where a great thing happened. Okay, anyway, so he goes to convene with Hashem. Now let's get to work. Vayishlach Yiftach malachim el melch b'nei Amon lemor, ma li v'loch kivasa elai lachem ba'artzi. So then Yiftach sends emissaries. This is important also because in Parshas Chukas, when they send before, remember, let's just do a quick review that in the end of Bamidbar, when the Jewish people were going to Ammon and to Moab, and they said, they sent emissaries. They said, could we just cross through? As you mentioned last week, we're not going to step on your flowers. We're not going to do battle. Whatever, any provisions we get, we will pay for. Okay, we're just passing through. I don't want anything from you. And they said, no. They said, no. They wouldn't provide them with supplies, even though they're willing to pay for it. Not only that, but they did battle. So you're going to do battle with us, then they get wiped out. And that's how we have this territory. Why is it a big deal? It's because it's Ammon and Moab. Who is Ammon and Moab? Again, you want to talk about the story of Rus, the story of Yehuda, the story of Lot and his daughters. Well, we know that Ammon and Moab come from Lot and his daughters in the end of in Parshas Vayera, the part that they skip over in grade school because it's a little too salacious, right? They think the world is over, and they get their father drunk, and they do what they do, and they have children, and they call it Ammon. And wait a minute, like, you're from us. Like, we're landsmen. And you're not going to help us. And that's what the Torah says a number of times. Al asher lo kidmu etchem balechem. Like, because they didn't help you out, they should have helped you out. It's not like Mitzrayim, they don't owe you anything. Yeah, we punished them enough. We don't expect you. But Ammon, that's what and that's the whole controversy with Ruth. It says that you're not allowed to have, there's never allowed to have a convert from Ammon or Moab because of this. They're never allowed to convert to Judaism. Wait, Ruth is from Ammon, and she's from Moab. She's really Moab. A Moabite. So they said no, because it applies to Moabite men, but not a Moabitess, not a Moab woman, but because of this episode. So he says to them, Yiftach says, he said again, sending malachim, emissaries like we had back in the day, which is why the time charts are going to be important. What's this between you and me that you've come to make war in my land? So you see, he speaks like this first person, very like, not like Ben Ischal Beinenu, it's like you and me. Aniva ata, ma liva lach. What's getin? Like, why do you have beef with me? What's your problem? Vayomer melach bnei Ammon el malachei Yiftach, ki lakach Yisrael es artzi ba'alosami Mitzrayim, me'arnon ve'ad hayabok ve'ad hayarden, ve'atal hashiva eshem b'shalom. So the king of Ammon, he says to the emissaries of Yiftach, okay, so you could close your eyes and this could take place today, Hayom. What's your problem with me? What did I ever do to you? Oh, because Israel took away my land when it ascended from Egypt, from Arnon to the Yabok to Jordan, so now return them in peace. You white colonialists, right? You took my land. You know, there's a little bit of subjective history here. So he says he's going back to Egypt. He's like, you guys came up from Egypt. Okay, we'll agree you came up from Egypt, and then you took my land. You seized, so you could change history all you want. By the way, that Jesus was Palestinian. I mean, he actually was, because he was Palestinian.
Oh,
Anybody who was born in Israel before 1948, it's Palestinian. Okay. But he was this, and he was like from Islam. So forget about dates and history and facts. It's irrelevant, but if you say it enough, people believe it. I honestly, I can't wrap my head around, the people who are allegedly educated and things that they're saying. Nebuch, these two like beautiful souls are murdered last week, like at like a thing that they were celebrating, like Israel Aid. You know what Israel Aid is? Israel Aid
Palestinians and Jews.
No, Israel is where they go over the world and they help, the earthquakes and this, like that. That was a speaker that, like, it was a whole bunch of things. That's what the whole thing's about, building bridges. It was about, that's what we do. We build things up.
It's like the people, Super the most peace.
Right. But the people are saying, no, they deserved it. I don't care if they didn't do anything. No, they're combatants and I'm like, and they really believe this, and it's a sickness. And where are they getting it from? They're getting it from universities. So it's very scary. It's very, very scary because it's not diminishing over time. It's only increasing over time, and more people. And you know, you got to be careful what you say when you're at work and you're here, there. You never know. You know, somebody makes a comment. Oh yeah, they got what they deserve. It's the same thing. Like we're gonna start a GoFundMe page to defend this guy who kills the executive from United Healthcare, right? Like, what crazy world do we live in that I want to like support and like fall in love with this guy? I don't care if he's good looking. He killed somebody in broad daylight. Oh, because I fail to grasp. Is it me? I don't know. I don't think it's me. I don't think it's me. Anyway, he says, you took our land. Okay. So now he says, return them in peace. All we want is peace. Yeah, that's what they always say before they attack you. Vayosef od Yiftach vayishlach malachim el melech bnei Ammon. Yiftach's like, okay, listen, pal, we're gonna have to get this record straight, so I'm sending you back my emissaries. Vayomer lo ko amar Yiftach lo lakach Yisrael es eretz Moav es eretz bnei Ammon ki ba'alo samim Mitzrayim yelech Yisrael b'midbar ad Yam Suf v'yavo kadesha. So whoa, this is the word of Yiftach. He says, we didn't take your land of Moab, we didn't take the land of Ammon, okay? Because when we came up from Egypt, yes, we did come from Egypt. We could agree on that. They went in the wilderness through the Yam Suf. They came to a place called Kadesh. Vayishlach Yisrael malachim el melech Adam leimor eber no ba'artzecha v'lo shamar melech Adam v'gam al melech Moav sholach v'lava vayeshev Yisrael b'Kadesh. They sent word to the king of Edom. They sent word to the king of Moab, and they wouldn't let them pass through. So we stayed in Kadesh. Vayelech b'midbar, and we pranced around the desert for 40 years. Okay. Vayasav es eretz Edom ves eretz Moav. We went roundabout. Right? We went around. We circumvented the land of Edom and the land of Moab. And we encamped across the Arnon, but they didn't enter the border of Moab because Arnon is the border of Moab. By the way, all these psukim will come alive when we read it in Bamidbar in a few weeks. And then we sent emissaries to Sichon, the Amorite king, the king of Cheshbon. Let us just pass through till we can get to our place. We don't want your land. We want to get to our land.
I find it so interesting that he knows the exact history of what happened.
No, why? I mean, this is. But let's. Okay, so this is why I brought in the charts. How much time do you think has elapsed from one to the other?
No.
Take a guess.
So bad.
Take a guess. Don't cheat. Take a guess. How many years?
From Mitzrayim, from
50. So 50 would be like.
Is the desert one
I'm saying from the time they get into Israel until now.
after the desert
Yeah,
until
until now, until this moment. Take a guess. 100. You say 50.
It's to be more because we had some generations that we read through of how many years each.
Correct.
one
Correct.
was.
that's true.
So it
There
has
was
to be
that in
that there-
the
it has to be
Perek, it was like
reduced
25
to-
and 23 or something.
And
like
those
Right.
were short, and then there was
Right.
one that was
Right.
much.
quite a few.
Edom
Right.
was much longer.
300 years. Okay, 300 years. So, I mean, what happened 300 years ago from right now? I can't count backwards.
was the United States. was-
Right?
But he's just a random person.
But he's okay. But you know, so.
just like a-
But they know. But first of all, they had the Chumash. He went to shul. He heard the laning. It's in, and I'm saying it's written. This is all written in the Chumash. He's almost quoting. He's almost
So he
quoting
knows
word
it's
for
from-
word. Yeah. I'm saying he's almost quoting word for word. That's
So well versed.
not every individual so well versed, but those who well versed were well versed. But so we take even if we
That's
take
why he was a gadol in his door, right? That's-
correct, but you're right. The details we came up, but this and that. I mean, if you would, so like people who are arguing these things today, I say my starting point is if you're going to say from the river to the sea, my starting point with you is can you name which river and which sea? Can you find it on a map? And my guess is yeah, no. That's and by the way, we have a lot within our own. We're the most Zionist people who, like, if you would ask them, like, what happened in 1948? What happened in 1956? What happened in 1967? What happened in 1973? 2005. All these things. Like, what happened? You get confused. It's a lot of dates, so you get confused. It's confusing. I get it. But when we know, wait, how many years were the Jews in the desert? 40. We all know that, right? How many years were they in Egypt?
400, 210.
We know, depending on, it's 400, 430, 210, but we say 400. That's like 400 years, okay? How old was Moshe when he died?
120.
Correct, 120, right?
That's why we say may I rest.
I used to be a chaplain and I used to visit nursing homes and people speak Yiddish. I would try and speak Yiddish to them. And I would say like, no, you should feel well. It's 120. And I remember one woman said to me, she said, "Chas v'shalom." She's like, I was like, "Just let me die now." Like,
Okay.
okay, sorry, didn't be that. Just trying to say hi and smile. See somebody young. It's all good. But some things we know, but because we chazer every year, we go over this. So this is, I'm telling you, look in Parshas Chukas and look in the beginning of the book of Devarim. Maybe we should do that. Is you'll see this is like laid out exactly like this. Okay, and he's like. Sichon didn't believe us. They wouldn't let us cross. So they gathered his whole nation and they camped and they did war with us at Yatzah. So what happened? You're going to fight with us? Hashem's going to let us be victorious. And we struck him down. And then that's why we have the Emirate land. Not because we wanted it, because you attacked us. Sound familiar? We didn't invade the land. You attacked us. And we happened to do well. And even did a little bit more better. And now you're telling me it's in violation of international law. Funny how that works when it's in your favor, okay? And we conquered. We took possession of the entire territory of the Amorites from Arnon to Yabok and from the wilderness to the Jordan. So before we get to that, since we brought that up, let's look at the sheets. I'm sorry I don't have this available like to show you on the screen, but I will. You know what? I'm going to scan it and send it with the recording. Okay. The first is that one in Hebrew, one in English. It's the timeline of the Shoftim. So just you could see Joshua. This how many years he ruled. I'm in an English one. How many years he ruled? But it says you see it's 2480. It's 2488 is when they come to the land of Israel. We know this because, and you could figure it out that the Torah was given. Well, the Exodus is 2448, and that's when the Torah is given. Add 40 to that. Carry the one. 2488. Okay, and we know that, and this is just funny. I'm talking about like Jewish years. Right now we're in 5785. So, and we're very into the numbers. We know exactly, how many years since the Exodus, etc. Avraham Avinu was born in the Jewish years. Is a great one. 1948. Avraham. Right? How old was Avraham when he died?
Look at that.
How old was Abraham when he died? Right? No, I'm saying like there's some dates that we know, like 175. Right? How old was Abraham when he left to go on the whole Lech Lecha journey? When he left Haran to go to Eretz Canaan. How old was Abraham when he left? If you ask me to do that, I'm not going to. I mean, how long have we known each other by now? He was 70. Abraham ben Shivim Shana b'Tzeso meCharan. Right? We know. So, don't even get me started with her. Okay, I'm just, yeah. Vivian is not. She's not on my Christmas card list right now. She doesn't like this text. I don't know. Anyway, although I saw Zelly. Zelly was here yesterday. She's great. I'm so happy. I love Vivian. I just, I miss her. That's what it is. When you see her, please tell her that I miss her. I don't know if she watches this. Right, so I did a whole thing for Delila, and she's like, "Oh my God, Rabbi, you embarrassed me!" Like I did. I'll do it again every time. But if you see Chedva / Vivian, tell her to say hello. Maybe send her a picture of me. I don't know. I don't know who's the Chevra. I don't know who on that side who their friends are. I don't know. So I don't know. Yeah. How old was Sarah when Yitzchak was born?
90.
I see. These dates we know. So 2488. And then if we go all the way, if you go down, Yiftach, the brothers, all these rules, Otniel, Ehud, Shamgar, who ruled for 4 minutes, Dvar Barak, okay? And then you have, by the way, do you see this? Avimelech, Tola, Ammonite rule, 18 years. We just came off of that. And then we get to Yiftach. Okay, so you scroll over, it's really like 2788. Okay, that's the box. It's between 2780 and 2800. So it's really 27. So it's about 300 years from the time of Yoshua, 2488 coming in to 27 in the 80s, right?
Mhm.
300 years. Okay. Now, this is also important. If you look at the maps, there's two maps here. Again, I will send this out. One color, one not so much color. Just look at the color one, the portions of the Shvatim. So this is important because you have obviously the dividing line. When you go here, here's the tribal lines, but you see those 2.5 tribes that are on that side in Transjordan, okay? On the right side of the map, okay? So that's all not Israel proper. That's the land of Ammon, and that's what we're talking about over here. So in the right in the non-color map, here you have the territories of Reuven, Gad, Chati, Menashe, and the kingdoms of Sichon, Og, Ammon, and Moab. Okay, and look at these places: Cheshbon, Medva, Yachaz, Arnon River, Edrei, Ashtarot. All these things. That's all what he just mentioned here. All the places. Next time I'm going to go over some of this geography with you. So hold on to these, please. And it's really fascinating. So in other words, they come up. Okay, so the Jewish people, they come up from Egypt. They can't just go the easy way. It's like come up this way. They got to go make a left turn into Israel. Okay, and they're just saying, we don't just let's give us passage so we can go through. We want to get to here. We don't want any of this. We just want to get to here. No. Okay, you're gonna fight with me. Guess what? You're gonna lose, and only that, then I take all of your area and I kill all your kings and everything. Okay.
At that point, they didn't fight with Ammon and Moab.
In Bamidbar and Devar, yeah, they did. Saying no.
We have a duck.
If it looks like a duck,
It's a phone.
yeah. So yeah,
So they did fight?
yeah, I'm saying, yeah, and they conquer. So he's and okay. So he's going to continue. He's going to continue this speech with like what happens. So we have to see that, and then what happens is we have to look at more of the geography as we go on. But then also we have this famous thing with Yiftach and the vow. And the vow with his daughter, that whole story. That's like a kind of like a second part of the story. But we're gonna see more of this. So hold on to these maps. Okay, we'll do it.
I have a question about the map.
Please.
How does Menashe get split that way?
Oh, so it's not contiguous, and they in the original plea. So this is also interesting. If you look in those parashas at the end of Bamidbar, in the original plea, it was only Reuven and Gad, and all of a sudden in the end it's Chatzi Chev and Menashe.
Which is why are they so big? Masha's so big.
They were, so that's why that's why they wanted this, because it's like we have a lot of people, we have a lot of flock, we have a lot of stuff. Let's make it easy for everybody else, So maybe it's a reasonable request. They're being, selfless. But in actuality, Moshe's like, are you kidding me? So one of the reasons that that Menashe gets thrown into this, Chazal tell us, is because if you have cousins on the other side, you're going to maintain a connection in the same tribe. If the same tribe is on both sides, we'll make sure we maintain a connection so they don't get completely cut off. Right? It could be that Reuven and Gad, I don't know what kind of relationship they have. We see, we're seeing it now. They're fighting, they're not fighting, they're coming. You didn't call me. Why didn't you call me when you had trouble in Gilad, as we saw in the previous chapters? But so we have to learn more about the terrain here and the rivers and the boundaries, etc. Really interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's funny, Paulette.
I mean,
Look at the map.
Oh, God.
one wouldn't think so because they're actually these are the children of Rachel, so they're usually like one and the same.
Is that like geography? Is that like a river or something?
Yeah.
Must be
It's
some
just
sort
there's
Really big.
Who knows?
yeah. To me, the saddest is Shimon. If you look at Shimon is so minuscule in number by the time they get to Israel that they're subsumed in the territory of Yehuda.
Are they smaller than Benjamin?
Tiny. Shimon is nothing left. They're decimated after the plague and everything. All right, hold on, please. We'll see you next time. Obviously, wait, next Tuesday, Shavuos, right?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah, and we're still keeping 2 days.
Happy to-
No, I told you my wife said. My wife's like, She says, you want to make a name for yourself, you get rid of the second day Yontif. I go, I don't want that name. Thank you very much. But
And then I'll
I
do
know.
class.
the one day, the second day, well, we have our women's Megillah root reading is very nice. It's beautiful. Anybody wants to come on the second day of Yontif, we have a wonderful reading of, I hear it's good. I don't go because I'm not allowed, but actually 2 teenage girls are reading it always, and 1 mom, and they read it. It's very nice. It's nice. I like Torah. It's very nice. Baruch Hashem. So, see, that never also would have happened. I'm just saying. I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
Yeah.
Okay, but then we tried, but nobody wanted it.
That's exactly right. But you know, I'm wondering if there's a new
What?
crowd.
And my parents'
Some
day,
new
they
people
had mixed
doing this.
dancing
I
at
love
the
it.
Young Israel.
Yeah.
get-together.
Black was a sheep.
Oh, yeah. Have a good day, everyone.
Tell my parents, the singles weekend with mixed dancing.